Welcome to the new APTUS Products Podcast, the Products Pod, where we'll dive into the latest product launches, explore innovations we're developing into our products, and unpack the global demand driving change in the energy sector. I'm your host for today, Ewan, Director of Products and Services here at APTUS, and I'm here with...
My name's Daniel Stephen, and I am the Modern Apprenticeship Programme Manager here at OPITO.
And...
Hi, I'm Lucie Booth, and I'm one of the Product Development Managers at OPITO.
Welcome. Today's topic and for this pod is the energy transition. So I'm going to kick off. Lucie, from your perspective, how's the global energy landscape evolved over the past decade?
So over a decade ago, the focus was heavily in oil and gas as opposed to the energy transition. Today, we're seeing a significant shift towards renewables, decarbonisation, and also digitalisation. The energy mix is continually diversifying, and sustainability is now playing a key factor in strategic planning. There's now also more of a drive for multi-skilled personnel. So maybe 30 years ago, an individual would have completed their full career in, say, like some mechanical, but you find that less and less nowadays.
Thanks, Lucie. Daniel, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think similar. I mean, I think 10 years ago there was a large focus on oil and gas, and there wasn't much talk of renewables, such as carbon capture, wind, and over the last 10 years that's grown dramatically to a point where young people and people that are currently in the industry want to move into those areas, and we're seeing a large amount of investment in the UK in projects across the UK, in those areas such as Acorn and Hinkley and Sizewell C and things like that. So there's more variety, I would say, probably in energy than there was 10 years ago.
What impact do you think that's had on job requirements? Do you think they're the same? Do you think they've changed? Or are there any new skills that have emerged as a result of the energy transition?
I guess there is a growing demand for digital literacy, for data analysis, for systematic thinking, for skills maybe in automation, AI, and environmental management. There's also, it'll always be required your traditional skills and safety and operational competencies.
And in terms of new entrants to the industry, Daniel, has there been a shift and a change there?
I think young people, especially these days, have a more focus on working, and certainly renewables seems to be a large focus for young people. It's not to say they don't want to work in sort of oil and gas, but that's the narrative they're seeing when they watch the news or they read about it. They see these large projects, like I said, such as Sizewell and Hinkley and Acorn and some of the carbon capture projects across the UK. They see that as exciting. They want to work in that area. So that's definitely a topic that when we see people come into the APTUS program, for example, it's a question they always ask of what you're doing in sort of renewable space.
Do you think it's going to have a big change in terms of, I think you touched on it, Lucie, in terms of people's career journeys? You know, traditionally, people might have spent the large part of their career in one sector. Do you think that's going to change as the energy mix evolves? Do you think people will spend, a few years in one sector, move across to another sector, or work on projects that span multiple sectors?
Yeah, I think the personnel will definitely move about projects more and sectors. And I think our role at APITO is to support those individuals to be able to do that.
And in terms of the apprentices, Daniel, do you think they see a broader energy career spanning multiple sectors now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can see those renewable parts of the energy industry growing, and they see that as in 10, 15, 20 years' time, once they're qualified and have experience, that those are options that they can go down. But I think they also see the holistic picture that there's lots to energy. It's not just oil and gas, it's not just wind, it's not just carbon capture or nuclear. They can spend a 40-year career working across all of those areas with the same skills. The environment changes, but again, kind of what Lucie touched upon, I guess it's our job at APTUS to try and help support those individuals to make sure that they can move across all those sectors.
I think we're seeing examples of that already. The industry apprenticeship scheme's been running for 25 years now. Many people have developed within organizations, moved internationally, and more now. I think there are examples of ex apprentices that are starting to work in projects in different parts of the energy sector. So, our stakeholders have changed their portfolios. The energy landscape is changing and evolving rapidly. What does that mean for APTUS? In your opinion, Lucie, how has APTUS evolved to meet the demands of the evolving energy sector, or continues to evolve to meet the demands?
Okay, so from a product development perspective, we've expanded our portfolio to include energy transition qualifications. These are really wraparound qualifications for apprentices. We're looking at embedding immersive technology in products wherever we can. We're trying to ensure relevance and future protection of all the products within our portfolio. We are working to create full frameworks, so such as the work with the hydrogen. We're not looking at one part of hydrogen, we're looking at having a full offering for the production, the transmission, and the distribution. And we're working with different technical experts that we've never worked with before, because primarily we were an oil and gas operations business, but now we're working with individuals from all the different sectors, not just hydrogen, not just CCUS, the wider energy transition.
Thanks. And Daniel, what does that mean for the apprenticeship program? Have we seen any changes so far? And do you think there are further changes to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've obviously, from an APTUS perspective, over the last few years, we've implemented the renewables module so that the apprentices learn about hydrogen, learn about carbon capture, and they learn about wind. But I think it's about how we continue to evolve that and sort of what Lucy said, how do we work with technical experts to make sure that what the APTUS apprentices are learning and developing is applicable across energy. And there's always going to be, I guess, specific skills that are needed for each individual um, sector of the energy industry. But I do think as a program, we need to make sure we are training people that they are adaptable, they can be flexible, and they can move across any sector within the energy industry.
And the changes that have been made to date in terms of introducing the energy transition units for the apprentices, how have those landed with the apprentices? Has feedback been positive?
Yeah, I think so far, I think the apprentices really enjoy that side of it. It allows them to take the sort of theoretical and practical knowledge that they're already learning and ask those questions and query, well, this is what we would normally do in an oil and gas setting, but how does that apply in a hydrogen setting or a carbon capture setting or a wind setting? And really sort of gives them that holistic picture of what's going on in the industry.
So just to move on slightly, Lucy, I think you touched upon working with different stakeholders and different technology SMEs. How does APITO work with industry partners to ensure it's listening and responding to real world needs and changes?
So I guess there's a variety of methods that we use to ensure that we're listening and collaborating. We engage through our industry forums, we've got steering groups, we undertake pilot programs to make sure that products are working as we intended them to. We undertake direct consultation. We look to have partnerships wherever it's possible to ensure that our products reflect current and emerging industry requirements. We have a department, strategic partnerships, whose role is to directly go out and speak to organizations and find out their needs and take these back to the business. And we're always here to listen. Anyone from industry, an employer, an operator can contact us at any time if there's an industry challenge, and we'll come together and we'll listen. We might not always be able to fix that problem, but we'll listen and support where and when we can.
From an APTUS perspective, Daniel, how does the feedback loop look like?
So we have a steering group where all of the sponsor companies that support the APTUS program are involved. So that's not just only from an APITO perspective, but also from an ECITP perspective, and also OUK sit on that as well. So we make sure that everybody that's involved in the program and supports the program has a say in the program. So that also includes any updates, any changes we want to make to the program. We ask for feedback. We make sure that we understand what's going on in the industry. It's also about learning best practice as well, and the steering group is very good at sharing their how they do things. And I guess it's not trying to reinvent the wheel where we don't need to. It's actually taking that best practice from the partners that we work with to make sure that we are delivering a service that's fit for purpose.
In terms of, we've talked a lot about new skills, but in terms of transferable skills, maybe starting in the apprenticeship space, are there any examples of where existing skills are relevant and transferable into new sectors?
I think a lot of the skills that the apprentices are learning certainly the college phase when they're learning that first learning that practical element of it. It's not necessarily solely focused on an oil and gas sector, for example. It's focused on the the foundations of being a mechanical technician, for example, or being an electrical technician, and how those apply. And I think those skills are applicable across all energy sectors. I think there's always going to be elements, whether you're working in wind or whether you're working in oil and gas or whether you're working in carbon capture, for example. There's always going to be an element, there's specific skills and specific knowledge that you need to know for those sectors. But I think the large sort of base of knowledge that you have and the skills, practical skills and experience that you have should be transferable across the energy industry.
So really the fundamental role of, say, an electrical technician or a mechanical technician is similar across all sectors, Daniel.
I think the base of it isn't I don't want to sort of generalize, but yeah, I think that there is an element where it's this the skill set is similar. I guess if me or you were to go and work in hydrogen, there would be a percentage of our job that is similar, and then we can use transferable skills that we've learned from previous experiences into that new job. But there's always going to be an element of new things that we need to learn, whether that's theoretical, whether that's practical. And I think it's the same for apprentices. They will have an element that they always have to learn, but I don't think that they don't have transferable skills. I think a lot of the experience and a lot of the skills that they learn, whether it's at college or whether it's the worksite phase, are transferable into other industries.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, a large part of it is around contextualization around a new industry, in terms of it's a different environment, it's a different substance potentially, which is different characteristics and different hazards.
Mhm.
From a emergency response perspective, Lucy, is it a similar story? Are we finding that many of the programs have a degree of transferability into other sectors?
Yeah, I can totally relate to the points that Daniel's just brought up. So there's things like hazard identification, emergency response, process safety, all that things are going to be highly transferable in any safety critical industry. The foundational competencies of them, they're always going to be important within multiple different sectors. So that's what we are seeing.
So you've both touched upon APTUS energy transition qualifications previously. Daniel, can I ask you, what role do you think that they play in terms of preparing apprentices for the future?
I think they play a vital role in making sure that they're painting, or we are painting, maybe we should say, a holistic picture of the energy industry. As we've talked about before, the industry is not solely focused on oil and gas anymore. There is an emerging, other emerging sectors such as wind and hydrogen and carbon capture. And I think it's important that those modules give the apprentices that foundation and what the energy industry actually is, and not just solely focused on oil and gas.
And Lucy, from a broader perspective, in terms of reskilling and multi-skilling the existing workforce, what part do you think the APITO energy transition qualifications play?
Yeah, they play a part in the reskilling and the upskilling of existing and new personnel. These are formal qualifications in their own right, which means that we have credit rated these and they are placed on the SCQF, which is the Scottish Credit Qualification Framework. It doesn't matter if an individual completes this within the apprenticeship or they complete this in one of our APITO approved centres, they will have a qualification at the end of it with a level and with credit points that they can take with them on their learning journey. All the intro qualifications are an SDQF level 6.
So moving on, let's talk about future talent in a little bit more detail. We've obviously touched upon it so far in terms of the APTUS program. Daniel, if I can ask you, APTUS is celebrating its 25th anniversary, which is a great success
Mhm.
story. How's the program evolved since it began 25 years ago?
I think it's evolved massively. Unfortunately, I wasn't here 25 years ago when it first started, but I think evolved dramatically. I think it started as probably a relatively small program in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s with a few industry partners, and it's evolved to us having roughly between about 17 to 20 industry partners, from operators to major contractors that are involved in the program. Obviously covering the four disciplines: mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, and process. But it's evolved dramatically. It's provided thousands of people the opportunity to enter into the industry and begin careers in the industry that they may not have had the opportunity to do.
Unfortunately, I was around 25 years ago, Daniel, when the program started, so that I'm unable to say that. But no, I agree. I think, it's been a hugely successful program. As you say, over 2,000 people have completed the program in the last 25 years and found long-term careers within the energy
Mm.
sector. The success rate in terms of converting completions into full-time employment is much higher than the national average for apprenticeships of this type. So I think, it's great to celebrate the success of the last 25 years. And I think there's a great opportunity for industry to use that success story to propel the program forward for the next
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, good.
So Daniel, Lucy's spoken about the international recognition and applicability of APTUS qualifications. How do you think that opens doors for apprentices?
I think apprentices that join the program currently or have been through the program in the past, it definitely opens doors for them. I think they are internationally recognised qualifications. We know of many apprentices who are not working in the UK at the moment and in the past. There's individuals that have worked in South Korea. There's individuals that have worked in Iraq, in the Middle East, in the Americas, because the qualifications are internationally recognised and people understand the importance of those qualifications. I think for the program in its current stance, what it allows us to do is ultimately look at what do other international locations need for apprenticeships. Is APTUS something that is applicable in those regions, whether that is in, like, say, the Americas, or whether that's in the Middle East, or in Asia Pacific. Is APTUS something that's applicable and would work for those individuals as well in those countries?
And Lucy, are you experiencing interest in the APTUS qualifications internationally?
Yeah, we've got a growing number of centres coming on board. Every year, we've probably got about 20 new qualifications centres coming on board. I think international apprenticeships are something that we'll see more and more in the future. In its most simplistic form, in my opinion, an apprenticeship's just a combination of qualifications that come together to deliver an agreed endpoint. So when we're going in and speaking to different organisations, everyone's got slight differences that they're needing to, but we've got such a diverse portfolio of qualifications now that we have the ability to almost pick and mix to fulfill different employer needs.
Thank you both. And let's move on and talk more specifically about hydrogen. Lucy, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned APTUS hydrogen framework that we're developing currently. Can you explain a bit more about what that framework is and why APTUS is developing it?
Yeah, so we're pulling together a training and competency framework around hydrogen, the full hydrogen economy. It's going to cover production, transmission, distribution, and potentially tanker loading so that we touch on all the different aspects. We are developing it to ensure that we have a workforce readiness to support the ever growing sector. We're working with specialists in this space to pull it all together. I think something that's really important with what we're proposing with the hydrogen offering is that it is a full offering. We're focusing on a new entrant coming in and being able to get up to technician level. At the same time, we're focusing on the likes of a process operation technician that we can transition into hydrogen. All our qualifications are flexible with the entry route, so depending on their experience, they can come and enter further down the framework. So we've designed it in such a way where we're not going to make individuals duplicate training. We're going to recognise the existing skills and experience that they have and take them on the journey with us.
And we spoke previously about the evolving apprenticeship program, and those qualifications, I think, may well play a part in the evolution of that program as we move forward as well. So, from your perspective, Lucie, how do you feel that the framework will prepare workers for roles in the emerging hydrogen economy?
I feel that it's going to prepare them really well. The likes of having a full hydrogen apprenticeships maybe quite a number of years still off from now. But what we can do with these qualifications is we can introduce them almost as once somebody's completed their apprenticeship, like build onto them with CPD and continue their learning journey to make sure that when the time comes when they need to be full hydrogen technicians, that we have that in place. We're also within the framework taking into account the landscape of hydrogen just now. So that very much across multiple countries, it's a blended approach when it comes to hydrogen. But by 2050, we're looking at it being full hydrogen, so 100%. And the qualification framework that's in development, it takes individuals with us on that journey from full methane through to 100% hydrogen.
In terms of our APTUS stakeholders, Daniel, are we finding that many of them are evolving into hydrogen activities?
I think certainly in some of the centres that we have across the world, that's a question that's being asked. I think that certainly in some of the markets where hydrogen is becoming more prominent, it's a question that's being asked as to whether that's something that can be added into workforce development solutions, into apprenticeships, that it can help develop people in those areas to go into the hydrogen sector.
Thank you both. Just before we close, some final thoughts. I'm going to come to Daniel first. What do you think APTU's role will be in terms of apprenticeships over the next decade as the energy transition accelerates?
I think our role is to make sure that, I mean, like we've just talked about, APTUS has run for the last 25 years. Actually, our 26th cohort just has started. But I think for the next 25 years, we need to make sure that it's fit for purpose, and we need to make sure it's fit for purpose for the energy sector that we're going to have in over the next 4, 5, 10, 20 years. And we need to be constantly evolving and making sure that the apprentices that we're hiring and bringing onto the program are being developed in a way that they can work across multiple energy sectors, and that they can move throughout their careers between oil and gas and wind and carbon capture and nuclear, and feel comfortable that they have the skills to do so.
And Lucie, your final thoughts?
Probably that we need to continue to lead in the workforce development space. We need to ensure that our products continually evolve with the ever-changing energy landscape. We need to ensure that our focus remains agile, innovative, and fully inclusive for all our learners, and make sure that we're preparing people for the jobs of tomorrow.
Thank you both for your time today. Stay tuned for our next episode. If you have any feedback or requests for future episodes, then please let us know. And thanks everyone for listening.